All right. Also, about 11 minutes into Senator Rubio's speech, he took a pause.
Oh, come on.
No.
You don't need to show this.
Well, actually, what, you don't want me to?
It's a cheap shot.
It's a cheap shot.
Is it a cheap shot?
Let's show it. That's who we are.
Wait, Mike, are you saying it's a cheap shot and we should show it?
Absolutely.
I think there were performance issues. And I think we all know.
Have you ever had a performance issue?
Yes, which is why it takes one to know one. These things happen when you don't really know what you're saying or believe what you're saying or feel what you're saying.
Or you're speaking to millions and millions and millions and millions of Americans. But I mean, this is the toughest gig.
I don't want you to think that I just worship the president.
This is like a guy that does the plates and following the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I mean, you don't want to follow the Beatles on Sullivan.
Why does anyone volunteer to do this?
The Beatles, really?
It's like Senior Winston's coming out after the Beatles with a hand puppet.
All right, here it is.
I'm not doing it.
Oh, you see.
In the short time that I've been here in Washington, nothing has frustrated me more than false choices like the one the president laid out tonight.
Stop it, Barnacle, right now.
Well, it's funny.
You're like the mean kid in class. Seriously.
Okay, don't run it on a loop.
Okay.
Don't run it on a loop. Stop it.
It's not just that. No. It's
well, let's talk about the substance.
That was the least of his challenge.
Wait. So talk about the presentation. I want to start. Hold on. Let's go with Harold Ford. And let's talk substance here.
Marco Rubio has been billed as one of the future leaders of the party, but he looked last night as if he was running to be the head of his fraternity in college. The substance wasn't totally off, but he missed. I thought there was many missed opportunities.
You said
there.
he was looking like he was running for college
fraternity president, as opposed to college president, which was even a smaller stage. I thought your point, Joe, about what should have been said is something that should have been articulated by Marco. He has become a new face of the party. He's become a new voice in the party, and one, frankly, that will command respect. But I thought last night, if he looks back on it, forget the water. I mean, if he was thirsty, he should take a sip. But the real issue there was, I think he missed a real substantive
opportunity. Can I just say that really quickly? We've got a lot to talk to. But let me just say to kids at home, if you're thinking about you want to grow up one day and give the minority's response to the President of the United States, if you drink the water, own the water. Okay?
Exactly.
You just grab that water and you hold it and you make a joke about climate change.
Well, Joe, you know, he tweeted a photo of the Poland Spring bottle after the fact. I actually saw him yesterday morning. I spent about an hour with the speaker with a small group of reporters, and Marco Rubio popped in to get some coffee and said hello. I asked him, are you feeling any pressure? And he said no. Then I saw him a little bit before he recorded his Spanish version and did the live version in English, where they were having sort of a group dinner, so he was walking through the hall with a plate of food. Again, seemed perfectly fine. I've seen him speak many, many times, and he's usually quite poised.
He's very good
He was obviously warm. He was feeling, you know, he was feeling the tension of the moment.
It's horrible. It is a horrible position to be in. When you have somebody like Bobby Jindal, who is one of the bright minds of the Republican Party, and he is. He's one of the brightest guys.
I think he's one of the brightest.
Why will anyone ever say yes to do it again?
Don't do it. And also the sign-off, Richard Haas, I don't understand it. Stay thirsty, my friend? Are you kidding me? This isn't going to help us win swing voters, and it's going to turn off the evangelical base.
I thought it was okay on two issues, which was immigration and on economic growth. Where I thought the speech was disappointing, and the contrast with the president's speech actually could have been larger, was on gun control, which was dismissive, on climate change, which was dismissive, and I was also surprised, maybe this is parochial, that I think there were two sentences on foreign policy. And I don't think if you're going to give a counter speech, I think you actually have to say more about the position of the United States in the world than that.
The Middle East is in flames right now. You should probably talk about it.
You have to be self-aware, and I think of Chris Christie, who I believe, unless I'm remembering correctly, turned it down.
He's a smart man, Chris Christie, and he's in the 70s.
He turned this one down?
Not this one.
I have a question that perhaps John Heilman can answer, and it is this: why Marco Rubio is a smart guy, he's an attractive guy, he's an articulate guy with a terrific life story. Why is it that in an age, in the past few months, when the Republicans have been talking about broadening the base of the party, speaking to a larger audience, why is it that he spent much time last night seemingly preaching to the choir rather than talking to the country?
That's a good point.
Well, you know, Mike, I think, you know, it points out the awkward intra-party politics that the Republicans now face. You know, you have a party that does need to broaden its base. It needs to reach out to a lot of the elements of the coalition that elected President Obama if they want to get back in the game in terms of national elections. And yet, to win the Republican nomination in 2016 requires catering to a part of the Republican Party, the Republican base, that is not in the middle of the country.
Hey,
it's
John,
pretty far out on the right.
Can I ask you really quickly, are these speeches done by committee? Like, did Marco have to pass this through a lot of different Republicans before he gave it himself?
I don't think so, Joe. And in fact, I was told yesterday, I was up on Capitol Hill, that he wrote most of the speech himself. A lot of people, he has a very large and growing assembly of very talented Republican strategists around him who think that he's the future of the party. A lot of people got to look at that speech, but it was said pretty reliably to me yesterday by a senior Republican that he basically writes his own speeches. And I don't think anybody else in the party outside of his orbit got their hands on it.
Well, you know, the reason why I asked that was because it really sounded like one of these speeches that was written by committee, and I had no problem with the water drinking. He did look kind of uncomfortable, like you said, Harold, out of his element a bit. My biggest problem was that it sounds like a speech that I gave in 1994, the first time I was running for Congress, and I sat there and I actually had a hard time focusing on the content of the speech. Because it was, John, you've heard, how many times have you heard this speech since 1994? And I sat there thinking, is this how we're going to reach out to a new generation of conservatives? I don't think so. We have, I mean, it is, you know, William F. Buckley believed that it was all about ideas. And the speech last night told me nothing that I have not heard 1,000 times since 1994.
Well, and Joe, I'll bring it even further up to date. If you take out the immigration part of the speech, it was basically the Romney platform from 2012. And this kind of cuts to a pretty core issue for Republicans. Is it just that they have to change their image and branding and their messaging, or do they have to change their positions on a bunch of substance issues? I think it's not so much that the speech was written by committee, it's that Marco Rubio is talking to two different audiences. He's trying both to talk to the country and to speak to that broader coalition that Republicans need to tap into, but he's also giving a speech for insiders here. He's trying to convey to the Republican Gang of 500 or whatever that he's the guy for 2016. And if you're trying to talk to the conservatives who are going to select the Republican nominee next time and also simultaneously talk to the broader part of the electorate, that's a very hard act to pull off. It's very hard to talk to both of those audiences successfully.
I've got to say there's a third thing here working, though. It's not just a question of style or substance. It's not about the Republicans changing their entire platform. It's not turning away from the eternal truths that we conservatives believe in that doesn't change decade to decade or election cycle to election cycle. It's applying our conservative beliefs and values to working class Americans like a shopkeeper's daughter in England did to the British people in 1979 when she launched the Thatcher Revolution. We've got to apply our beliefs and our values to the facts that are before us, and it's what this party hasn't done. It's what Mitt Romney could never do. He could never connect the dots to relate to middle America. And Marco, for all of his talents, didn't do that last night. We've got to actually start figuring out a way to relate our message.
I don't disagree with that about the message in your party, and I will stay in my lane and say that I think that the people around him, that team you're talking about, got in his head and messed him up, and they better watch out because they're going to hurt him in the long run. I do coaching with people on public speaking. I could see all those people in his head instead of anything he was saying. Coming up, former White House